Welcome to Stats Madness. Joining me today is Frank Hardy. We'll break down Chelsea's 0-3 loss to Manchester City. With this result, Chelsea sits 6th on 48 points, while City claims 2nd with 61. Let's start with what went wrong for Chelsea. With Chelsea's placement now in mind, let's break down the match facts. What stands out statistically?
The 0-3 scoreline is just the tip. Chelsea had 12 shots to City's 18, a 20% differential. Only 3 were on target compared to City's 8, a 45% gap. Ball possession was 36% for Chelsea, meaning City dominated with 64%. These numbers show City's control all over the pitch.
So, building on those match facts, how did the teams compare in category performance?
Manchester City exhibited attacking superiority with 87.9 compared to Chelsea's 37.6, giving them a 40% edge. In possession control, City led 69.4 to Chelsea's 41.6, a 25% advantage. Defensively, both teams were equal at 59.3. Overall, it was a split contest with City controlling attack and possession.
Given City's dominance in possession and attack, how did their tactical execution inside the box compare to Chelsea's?
In attack, Manchester City had a clear edge, leading shots inside box 14.0 to 7.0. This highlights their aggressive approach in the penalty area, doubling Chelsea's efforts and creating more scoring opportunities.
Wait, really? And what about defensive plays? Did Chelsea manage to make up for it there?
Defensively, Chelsea did have a slight lead in tackles, 20.0 to 19.0, but City countered with 9.0 interceptions compared to Chelsea's 5.0, showcasing their ability to disrupt plays and transition effectively.
So while Chelsea held their ground defensively, how did the momentum shift between the two teams during the match?
Manchester City dominated the critical 45-60-minute window, taking control with 67.6% possession and scoring twice. Their shots total soared to 6 compared to Chelsea's 1. City's surge was pivotal, effectively turning the tide in their favour, while Chelsea struggled to regain any momentum. This dominance in both possession and offensive attempts underscored City's tactical prowess during that interval, making it a decisive period in the match.
So after Manchester City's momentum shift, how does Chelsea's performance compare to their season averages?
Chelsea's performance was notably below par. They managed only 3 goal attempts, starkly lower than their 9-16 average. Ball possession dropped to 36%, well beneath their 59.1 average. Interceptions also fell to 5, compared to a 9.94 season average. Even big chances created dipped to 2 under their usual 3.06. These declines highlight a significant underperformance in key areas for Chelsea.
With Chelsea's underperformance fresh in mind, how does their league standing reflect their identity this season?
Chelsea's identity crisis is evident. They created only 2 big chances, down from their 3.06 average, usually top 10% for this stat. Their ball possession plummeted to 36%, far below their 59.1 average, typically top 10%.
Wait, really? And what about their defensive actions? How do they stack up there?
Defensively, Chelsea made just 5 interceptions, a stark drop from their 9.94 average, which is top 0%. This decline emphasizes their broader struggles, highlighting gaps in their usual defensive prowess.
So, considering Chelsea's league standing issues, how do they compare to their closest peers in ball possession and big chances created?
In ball possession, Chelsea averages 59.1%, topping peers like Manchester City at 59.97% and Liverpool at 59.84%. As for big chances created, Chelsea's 3.06 beats Arsenal's 3.0 and Manchester United's 2.87. Yet, their recent 36% possession and 2 chances indicate inconsistency, contrasting their usual edge over top-tier counterparts.
Interesting. Chelsea's possession inconsistencies were telling. How does Manchester City fare against their own season average?
Manchester City exceeded their season average in shots inside box with 14.0, well above their norm of 10.8. They also improved their shots total, recording 18.0 against the 14.73 average. Tackles saw an increase too, hitting 19.0 compared to their usual 14.87. These upward trends show a stronger offensive and defensive performance.
So, Manchester City's averages were impressive. Where do they stand in the league rankings?
Manchester City is a league standout in successful long passes percentage, achieving 69% against a league average of 42.55%. Their identity as an elite passing team is confirmed.
Wait, really? And that held up across other passing metrics too?
Absolutely. They also led in successful passes, completing 617 with a season average of 519.2, well above the league norm of 360.74. This improvement is remarkable.
So with Manchester City's standing confirmed, how do they compare to their peers in key areas?
Interestingly, while they trail in long passes with a 39.03 average, behind leaders like Manchester United at 49.94, they excel in creating big chances. Their average of 3.17 is ahead of top rivals, including Chelsea at 3.06 and Arsenal at 3.0. This mix of stats highlights their strengths and areas that need focus.
Considering City's standout performances, let's talk player ratings. Who excelled on the field this time?
Mark Guéhi shone brightest in the defensive line with an impressive 8.62 rating, commanding his area. Ryan Cherki wasn't far behind in the forward line, rating 8.15, showcasing his offensive prowess. Gianluigi Donnarumma was pivotal as goalkeeper with a 7.53, consistently pushing his unit forward. In midfield, Bernardo Silva contributed significantly, earning a solid 7.11 rating, demonstrating his organising skills.
Given City's strategic edge, how did Mark Guéhi's recent performance stack up against his season average?
Mark Guéhi delivered a masterclass in tackles, registering 3.0, well above his 1.78 seasonal average. However, it was a tough outing for him in clearances. 1.0 is well below his 4.76 season standard. Notably, his duels won percentage was a perfect 100.0, far surpassing his 64.14 average, highlighting both brilliance and areas for improvement.
With Mark Guéhi's tackles showing room for improvement, how does he fare compared to other league centre-backs?
Mark Guéhi's tackles are at 3 per game, which is below average, placing him in the bottom 39% for centre-backs compared to the 1.95 league benchmark. However, his ball recovery is exceptional, ranking in the top 21% with a 4.2 average against the 3.33 league norm. Impressively, his aerials won percentage is at 75%, putting him in the top 16%, far above the 53.67 league average.
So, with Mark Guéhi's league standing in mind, how does he stack up against his positional peers?
Mark Guéhi trails behind his peers in tackles, averaging 1.8 compared to James Garner's 2.6. Similarly, his interceptions per game are at 1.7, whereas Max Allaney averages 2.0. However, Guéhi excels in aerials, winning 62.2% of his duels, significantly outperforming peers like Garner, who averages 46.3%. This makes Guéhi an aerial leader despite some defensive areas needing improvement.
Having assessed Guéhi's standing among peers, let's dive into Ryan Cherki's performance compared to his season averages. What stands out?
Ryan Cherki was sharp in assists, recording 2.0, significantly above his 1.43 average. He also excelled with big chances created, delivering 2.0 compared to his 1.25 average. However, he fell short in successful dribbles, managing only 2.0 against his typical 2.6. These numbers highlight Cherki's mixed performance spectrum, but indicate substantial creative influence.
Cherki's deviation from his season averages was intriguing. How does he stack up against league standards in key areas?
Ryan Cherki stands out with assists, ranking in the top 1% of attacking midfielders. His average of 2.0 far exceeds the league's 1.05. In successful dribbles, he's also exceptional, ranking in the top 2% with a rate of 2.0 compared to the league norm of 1.49. These stats position Cherki as an elite attacker in both playmaking and ball control.
Cherki's league standing was impressive, but let's pivot to Nico O'Reilly's performance. How did he fare against his season average?
Nico O'Reilly showcased robust stats, particularly in tackles, where he recorded 4.0 against a season average of 3.0. He also excelled in duels won with 6.0, surpassing his typical 5.1. Additionally, his key passes increased, reaching 2.0 compared to 1.4. These areas highlight his significant contributions beyond regular expectations.
Speaking of standing out, Nico O'Reilly also shows some impressive metrics. How does he compare to league standards in key defensive stats?
Nico O'Reilly shines in duels won, ranked in the top 25% of fullbacks with an average of 6.0 per game, surpassing the 4.17 league benchmark. However, his interceptions are less impressive, placing him in the bottom 32% with 1.4, below the 1.5 average. On a brighter note, his successful crosses percentage is top tier, ranking in the top 16% at 67.0%, well above the league's 50.0% norm.
Now, shifting from O'Reilly's defensive prowess, let's dive into Gianluigi Donnarumma's performance this season. How has he fared compared to his averages?
Gianluigi Donnarumma has been impressive, especially with saves, recording 3.0 per match, above his 2.48 average. His accurate passes percentage is remarkable at 93.0%, surpassing the 81.43% season average. Interestingly, his saves inside box are consistent with a 2.0 average, aligning closely with his standard performance of 1.96. These metrics highlight his strong presence in goal.
We just covered Donnarumma's stellar stats. Now let's look at Matheus Nunes. How does he compare to his season averages?
Matheus Nunes has been sharp in ball recovery, recording 6.0, which is above his average of 5.11. His interceptions are consistent too, with a solid 2.0, right in line with his 2.08 season average. These metrics show that while Núñez excels at recovering possession, his interception skills remain stable, making him a reliable presence on the field.
Reflecting on Núñez's consistency, Manchester City's 3-0 victory showcased tactical prowess, especially with 64% possession. Thanks, Frank, for your insights on how City dominated key areas. And thank you, audience, for joining us on Stats Madness. See you next time for more tactical breakdowns.